Hello, welcome to Foreign Matters, titled The Language of Torture. I'm late on this one, but I've only just had the chance to plough through recently released US Justice Department files on the legality of interrogating Al-Qaeda suspects during the Bush years. Not an easy read. Hundreds of pages of previously top-secret material, written in the dry, unemotional language of the legal world, as the department proves the maxim, where there's a political will, there's a legal way. In 2002, as Al-Qaeda suspects began to arrive in various places to be interrogated, the CIA wanted legal rulings on whether subjecting detainees to sleep deprivation, stress positions, waterboarding and other practices violated various prohibitions on torture. The CIA spelt out the techniques they wanted to use. The news in the advice given to them is not in the techniques. It's in the reasoning why it doesn't constitute torture, according to the department. Two examples. Waterboarding. This is where a person is strapped to a board with their feet slightly elevated. A cloth is placed over the nose and mouth. Water is then poured onto the cloth. Now, this quickly gives the physiological impression of being drowned. It doesn't matter whether or not the person knows in advance they're not going to be drowned. Instinct takes over from rational thought. The US Navy uses waterboarding in the training of its special forces, and it's almost 100% effective in breaking people. The Justice Department ruled that the technique does not involve, quote, severe physical pain, and thus does not break US Law Section 2340A. It then considers severe mental pain, defined as prolonged mental pain, and argues that as the suffering is not prolonged, again, it doesn't constitute torture. Despite an acknowledgement that waterboarding induces a perception of imminent death, it's not torture because, quote, relief is immediate when the cloth is removed. There's some fascinating constraints on the CIA. The department only allows water to be poured into the nose and mouth for 40 seconds at a time and must not total more than 12 minutes in a 24-hour period. After stripping the person, slapping them, dousing them in water, subjecting them to stress positions, and then depriving them of sleep, the detainee, under the rulings in the Bush era, must be given a break of at least 1 hour before the next session begins. Another example, insects. Some of the finest minds in the US legal system turned their attention to dropping insects into boxes containing prisoners. One man in particular had a fear of stinging insects. The CIA wanted to drop a caterpillar onto him, but tell him it could sting. The lawyers came up with a compromise. Quote, you must inform him that the insects will not have a sting which could produce death or severe pain, unquote. There's something both banal and horrifying at this ruling, and in a strange way, almost, but not quite, reassuring. Can you imagine Al-Qaeda interrogating an American and asking bin Laden for a legal ruling on whether they could pull all 10 toenails out in one go and then pour acid onto the wounds, or would they have to give the prisoner an hour's break between each nail? By 2005, the CIA was back, asking for advice on whether they were violating the 5th statute on a different anti-torture ruling. J.S. Bybee, Assistant Attorney General, replied, quote, an individual must have the specific intent to inflict severe pain and suffering. But what about Article 16 of the UN Convention on Torture, which the US has signed? No problem, says the Justice Department, because as it understands Article 16, it only applies to territory considered under US jurisdiction where it exercises de facto authority as the government. The CIA believes the legal go-ahead gave them the tools to prevent several attacks, and it led to the arrest of several key terrorists. The Bush administration at the highest levels agreed that none of this was torture. President Obama has said that those who carried out the policy will not be prosecuted, but he left the door open to those who gave the legal justification to be prosecuted. But prosecuting people in the previous government for their legal opinions would set off a legal and political firestorm. So let's see if it happens. That's Foreign Matters. See you next time.